I'm Jolene Wynn, and this is the Porn Addict's Wife podcast, episode number 161, Should My Husband Tell Me Every Time He Messes Up? I used to think of myself as the wife of a porn addict, but I do not think of myself that way anymore, and you don't have to either. In this podcast, I am going to teach you how to manage your mind and your emotions so that you can stop living your life around your husband's pornography addiction. I am going to teach you how to stop being the victim and how to conquer his pornography addiction, even if he never does. I'm Jolene Wynn. I am a certified life coach, and I am a member of the LDS faith and the wife of a former porn addict. And this is a podcast for the porn addict's wife. Good morning, my ladies. How are you today? I am so glad to be on the podcast with you today. It is June. And that may seem like a duh moment, but for some reason, it feels like just the beginning of my summer. I know so many of you guys, your kids have been out for a while, but my kids ended on Friday and it's Monday. So I feel like summer is just starting and I'm very excited about it. And we have had just gorgeous weather, which hasn't been too hot, which I am loving. I'm so happy right now. And it has just been beautiful. My husband's birthday is this week and Father's Day is in 1 week. So it's going to be a wonderful week. I'm so excited. I'm excited to dive in today. This is actually coming from an email that I received from a listener, but I did want to remind you guys of two very exciting things. One is I want to invite you guys to come to How to Not Hate Your Body Masterclass. There are so many things, so many areas of our relationship, so many areas of our life and our identity that get affected by our husband being addicted to pornography. And body image is a huge part of this. It is what brings up all of our stuff, right? And inside my coaching program this month, I am teaching a masterclass called How to Not Hate Your Body. I was supposed to teach it last month, but it got postponed because I got sick. So I am teaching it this month, and you can join us live by joining my coaching program. So it's a class that I'm teaching live inside my coaching program. So once you join, you have access to it. And that is going to be June 26th, 27th, and 28th. I am so excited to do this. It's going to be 3 days of not only coaching, but it will be a lot of coaching, but also a lot of teaching on how to retrain your brain. I always talk about this, but this is the most life-changing work that I did. Besides learning how to process, it's all the same process, but learning how to move on from the pain of the emotional baggage of my husband's addiction, learning how to shift my identity into someone who doesn't hate their body has been the most life-altering experience for me. It has changed the way that I show up in how I eat, in how I work out, in how I participate in an intimate relationship with my husband. It has touched how I get dressed. Ladies, it has touched every area of my life, and I am so excited to teach my clients how I did that. I'm going to walk them through the process of how to go from hating your body, or even if you don't hate your body, if you're like, well, I don't hate my body. If you don't like how you feel about your body, or you don't feel about your body the way that you want to, then I would encourage you to come to this class, because most of the time we try to change that by changing the way that we look. We say, I don't like my body, and I'm going to change that by losing weight. I don't like my body. I'm going to change that by buying a new dress. I don't like my body. I'm going to do my hair, right? And we try to do it all from the outside in. And I'm going to teach you how to do it from the inside out, which is the only permanent way to do it. Okay? I'm so excited about it. So again, you can go to my website, jolenewynn.com. You can sign up for my lifetime coaching program today. You get access forever, and you'll be able to join that class live, which is at the last week of June 26th through the 28th. So I'm so excited to see you there. The second thing that I wanted to let you guys know is that my retreat, my in-person live retreat at the beach in North Carolina is going to be in October, and you guys are going to be able to start signing up for that in just a few weeks. So get on my email list. You can go to my website, again, jolenewynn.com, and you can get on my email list so that you guys can be the first to know, especially if you know that you want to snag one of those spots. There are only 14 spots. I think we have 9 left, and they are going to fill out. So it is going to be a completely full, amazing weekend of 3-day in-person coaching. That is going to be just a lot of one-on-one intensive time. And we are going to be focusing on reinventing yourself, recreating your identity. So if that sounds like something you want to do, if you're tired of identifying yourself the way that you do, if you're tired of thinking about yourself the way that you are, then this event is for you, and I cannot wait to see you there. Okay? All right, let's dive into today. I am very excited about this. I had a sweet girl, I don't know if she's a girl, a woman, a wonderful woman, email me this week. And she said, "Hi, Jolene. I'm not sure if you will receive this email, but I'm really stuck on wondering if I should have my husband tell me every time he messes up. Is that a good thing to have him do, or is it more damaging? Like if he had an accountability partner, but also tells me when he messes up." Okay? And this was such a good question. I said, I love this. I love that you're bringing this up. I would love to do a podcast on this. I emailed her back and gave her some thoughts and a lot of coaching, and she was so good about it. And so I emailed her back, but I wanted to address it on a podcast because it is such a good question. You guys know how I feel about accountability partners. I think I've done a podcast on accountability partners, and I think that's what it's called. I think that's what the title of the podcast is called. And I do not believe you should be his accountability partner. So first of all, let's talk about what the difference is between an accountability partner and him telling you if he messes up. Okay. So an accountability partner is somebody that a lot of addicts use, which is a wonderful tool that they can come to, and it helps them keep them accountable for their actions. Hence the term. So they might use them to say, "Hey, I felt triggered today," or "Hey, I'm having a really strong urge," or "Hey, I actually gave in today to this urge and I watched something." Okay. An accountability partner is someone that they go to who has no judgment. A lot of times, most of the time, this is also somebody who used to struggle with an addiction. One of the ways, this is just a little side note, one of the best, if your husband doesn't have an accountability partner, and it should not be you, ladies, and I'll tell you why in a minute, then what I want to offer is there is an app called Relay, and you can download it, and actually connects them to an accountability partner for pornography specifically. So that is an option that is available. If they don't have anybody, if they want it to be anonymous, if they don't feel comfortable asking somebody that they know, that is a really good alternative. But the reason that I don't want you to be his accountability partner is because most women are not in a healthy enough place emotionally to take on whatever it is that comes up for you when he comes to you and says, "Hey, I've been struggling with this." Okay, does that make sense? So let me give you an example. If your husband came to you and said, "Hey, hun, I was really triggered today, and I had a huge urge to watch pornography, and here was the trigger that I had, and this is what I felt." What's going to happen is you're going to want to be in a place where you're like, "Oh, how did that make you feel?" And you're going to want to set your own feelings aside in order to create space for him so that you don't accidentally make it worse. And what's going to happen is you're going to want to shove away your own feelings, all the insecurities, all the self-doubt, all the "why am I not enough?" or "what happened?" or "what's wrong with me?" or "how can I make this better?" or "why can't I just fix it?" All of that comes up for you, you're going to want to shove down. And most of you guys, most of us, all of us, okay, are not typically in a space where we are emotionally capable of handling everything that comes up for ourselves when we are the accountability partner for our spouse. Does that make sense? Now, what is the difference between that and him telling you when he messes up? Okay. Now, everybody has a different term. Mess up, slip up, relapse. You can call it whatever you want. I would get very specific about this. I actually have a client that's been messaging me, and we've been coaching via Messenger, which is something we can do. And she has realized that her husband and her, she was having a hard time with her husband. She felt like he wasn't being honest. And we got really specific and nitty gritty about it. And the problem is that they have different definitions of a slip up. And her definition is that he comes and tells her within a certain period of time. And then his definition is different. And so they were having different definitions of what a slip up or a mess up is. And so it was creating a barrier to their communication. Does that make sense? So again, I would get very aware and conscious of, what do you determine is a slip up? Do you think it's a trigger? Do you think it's him watching porn? Do you think it's him watching videos or just looking at pictures? Or does it constitute, like if he watches it today, but twice, is that 2 slip-ups or 1? Right? Now, the reason that I'm getting so specific about this, again, it comes from my client. One of the things that her husband and her did not see eye to eye on, or were not on the same page with, is if he had a slip up within, like, let's say he watched porn today and then he also watched it tonight, he thought of that as 1 slip up, and she thought of it as 2. Does this make sense? You guys with me? So it's very important to get very clear about this, because she thought he was being dishonest, that he wasn't being forthcoming about how often, even though he came and told her about his slip up, she thought he was not being fully honest about it. and because he was combining it into one. Okay, so it seems really nitty gritty. It seems like, why are we getting into this? Why is this so important? But it is important to notice the way that you're thinking about it. Notice the way that you're categorizing it. Notice the way that you define it, because that is going to shape the way that you approach it, the way that you feel about it, the way that you take in information. Okay, so if your husband slips up and you want him to tell you, you can, but I want you to get very clear about why. And this is what I emailed back to this sweet girl who said, is there something, should I have him tell me, if, not as an accountability partner, but as a spouse, should I have him tell me? And this is what I told her. I said, if you want your husband to tell you every time he messes up, the real question, ladies, is why? Why do you want him to tell you? And it's really important to understand your reason, because it's going to influence the outcome, okay? Sometimes women want to know because they think it'll make them feel better, right? They think that if they know every time he messes up that they will feel better, and it won't. Okay. They think if they have all the information that it will somehow feel better, because not knowing is very uncomfortable. I had another client who was messaging just this morning, and she wanted to know if her husband relapsed. She assumed that he did this last weekend. She was at work. She said, he's relapsed so many times while I'm at work. I know it's harder for him when I'm at work. I know he relapses. So I assumed that he relapsed, and yet I checked the internet history and it was wiped. It was deleted. So that only proves to me that he did, but I don't actually know that for sure, but she's acting as if she did, and she just wants to know. She wants to be able to check the router, but she doesn't know how to check the router. And she's sitting here stewing in this because she says, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to do that to him. I don't want to do that to our relationship. And yet, or that's not how she wants to show up. And yet she thinks that checking the router and checking the history and knowing 100%, knowing for sure, having the evidence to prove to herself that it actually happened is what's going to make her feel better. And it's never going to make you feel better. Okay, so sometimes women want to know that he messed up. They want him to come tell her every time just because they think it'll make them feel better, which it won't, or because they think that him telling them is what is creating trust in the relationship, which it isn't. Okay. Now, I know that if you guys have been around for a hot minute, then you know I have a lot of thoughts about trust, and I have a million podcast episodes about trust. But one of the things that our brain believes that trust is built on evidence. If he tells me, that means that I can trust him. Now, I am not discounting this. I am not saying that it's not a good thing for him to build trust with you, or to take action that you enjoy and that will build that trust. That's a wonderful thing, and I would love that if he did it. But I also want you to know that it's not him telling you that's going to build the trust. It's how you choose to think about him telling you. Because he could come tell you and say, hey, honey, I've relapsed. And you could be like, well, I don't believe you. I don't believe you're telling me everything. I don't believe that you've told me every single time. I don't think you've told me the whole story. And you could still not trust what he's telling you. Does that make sense? So I want you to get really clear. It's very important. If you want your husband to tell you when he messes up, then I want you to ask yourself why. And get really curious. Don't go with the surface answer. Go internal. Why do I want him to tell me when he messes up? And here's another question that I would ask is, what do you want him to say? Because a lot of times you'll think, well, I just want to know if he did or not. And yet if you get really curious and really specific, that's not really what you want sometimes. Sometimes you actually want to know all of it. You want more details. You want to know what it was that happened. You want to know where you were. You want to know what you were doing. You want to know what led up to it. What were his thoughts? And those are all things that you don't actually need to know. Okay. One of the reasons why our brain wants to get really specific and know those details is, again, because it thinks that then it will make us feel better. Maybe if I understand why, maybe if I figure out where I was, maybe if I can figure out all of these things, then I'll feel better about it. Or it wants to validate our feelings. It hurts, ladies, and our brain wants validation, because sometimes we feel like if we're hurt by it and we don't have any evidence, then we're just kind of going crazy. You guys with me on this? You ever felt this? I have had so many conversations with clients who want to join my coaching program, consultation calls, and they say things like, I feel like I'm crazy. I feel like I'm making this up. I feel like I'm overreacting. And that's what we feel like. That's all the judgment we have on our own feelings. But I want you guys to just give yourself permission to let the judgment go and to recognize that your emotions are valid. They do not need validation through evidence. Okay? Does this make sense? So ladies, if you do look at why, if you think, okay, Do I want my husband to tell me when he messes up? Yes or no? First of all, what is a mess up? When do I want him to tell me? Do I have a specific idea of when that is? Okay, because a lot of us have a subconscious idea. Well, I want him to tell me within 24 hours, right? Or whatever it is. But if you want him to tell you and you know why, then here's what I want to encourage you is to not focus on the details. So if you and your husband decide, if you say, you know what, husband, I would love it if you would tell me when you mess up. Here's why. I like that reason. I feel confident in my ability to handle myself emotionally when you do. Then that is simply a request that you can make. And he can choose, ladies, whether or not he wants to tell you. You with me on this? You can't force him to tell you when he messes up. I wish that I could force him to do all kinds of things, but I can't. If I could force him to do things, ladies, I would just force him to stop watching it, okay? And I can't do that. But if you want to have him tell you, you can request it, but also notice that it's simply a request. Now, here's where it gets tricky. Most people, most women, when they ask their husband this, then they make it mean something if he doesn't. This is very, very tricky. Most women will say, I want you to tell me. I would appreciate it if you would tell me when you slip up so that we can work on it, so that we can build trust, so that we can blah, 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 whatever your reason is. And if you like your reason, then that's your reason, but get very clear on it ahead of time. The problem is if he doesn't tell you, then what do you make that mean? Do you make it mean he doesn't love you? Do you make it mean he doesn't trust you? Do you make it mean that he's not working on it? And the reason that I bring this up is because in this email that I got, the same email from this girl, her thoughts, she said, can you tell me, is it good to have him tell me when he messes up, or is it more damaging? Quite frankly, that has more to do with you and your ability to process your emotions than anything else. Okay. Again, the details are not required. So if you are having him tell you all the details, that can be more damaging. If he is telling you in order to be honest, in order to work through it and all of those things, and you guys want to be on the same page, then that could be a fine thing. But also all ladies will boil down to your ability and your skill to process the emotions that come up for you and not make them drag on even more, not carry them as emotional baggage into the next scenario in your relationship. Does this make sense? And if you don't know how to do that, that's why I have a program, because that's what I teach you how to do, okay? But the second thing that she said in the latter half of her podcast, of her email, which is what I'm bringing up now, is she said, I'm afraid that if he doesn't tell me he messed up, that he's just holding it back and continuing in the addiction. Did you guys see what she did? She made it mean something if he doesn't tell her. She's making it mean that he's holding it back and continuing in the addiction. Notice that her brain has connected, and this is what I told her in the email, her brain has connected him telling her with meaning that he's working on it. And that's not necessarily true. It feels true. It feels like a piece of evidence that he's actually moving forward. But ladies, it doesn't actually mean that he's moving forward. And as long as you keep that connected, then your brain's always going to want him to tell you so that you have proof that he's moving forward, that he's working on it. And why do you want that? So that you can feel better about where you are. Does this make sense? So if you want him to tell you, I want you to get really curious about why, and then also know what you're making it mean if he doesn't. Ladies, he could be telling you because he is working on it, or he could be telling you simply because that's what he thinks that you want to hear, and he could be hiding it really well. Who knows? I don't know. It's your thought about what he's saying that is creating the feeling. Does this make sense? So she feels better when he tells her because her thought is that he's working on it. But she could just as easily be thinking, he's just placating me. He's not telling me the whole story. He's just telling me what he wants to hear, what I want to hear. Or he could just be saying all of these really nice words, and it doesn't actually mean that he's working on it. Does this make sense? Ladies, are you with me? The way that you think about what he's saying is what produces your emotion about it. So watch what you're making it mean if he doesn't tell you if he messes up. Because here's the truth, ladies, he could just be not telling you because he's trying to process all of the shame of it. He could not be telling you because he doesn't want to hurt your feelings. If you guys have listened to any of the podcast episodes that I've done with Rob, One of them that he talks about is how to tell your wife, or when it's a bonus episode that we did about telling your wife you're addicted to pornography. And he got to a place where he had to be okay with me walking away and saying I want a divorce before he was able to tell me, because of all of the emotion that it brought up for him. So he was addicted to porn for years before he told me, because he couldn't handle telling me because he was so afraid of how I might feel. Does this make sense? So I want you guys to notice, if you have this question, should my husband be telling me? I want him to tell me if he messes up. Should he tell me if he messes up? There is no should or shouldn't. There's no right or wrong answer here. For some of you, you're going to want him to tell you, and maybe that's a wonderful thing. And for some of you, maybe it's exactly what shouldn't be happening right now. And that's another point I wanted to bring up. It might be where that you guys are at a place where that isn't what's best for the both of you. Maybe it brings up too much emotion in him and too much emotion in you. Maybe those conversations aren't beneficial because both of you don't know how to process emotions, and instead you react, you yell, you fight, you scream, you cry, you break down, you say things you don't mean, and you react in a way that you don't enjoy and is actually more detrimental to your relationship than him telling you and being honest in the first place. Are you guys with me on this? Now, if that's where you're at, that's totally fine. You're at. There's my Delaware coming out. If that's where you are, there's proper English. If that's where you are, it's totally fine. But that's not where you have to stay. So if that's where you are in your relationship, if him telling you isn't beneficial to you right now, then I want to encourage you to just take a breath and let it go for now. And the key to being able to do it in the future is going to be you working through all of those emotions, learning how to process emotions, learning how to not react to those emotions so that you stop having regret about the way that conversation went later. Does this make sense? Are you guys with me? And once you learn how to do that, then maybe you can come back to it. I'm telling you, ladies, like Rob and I are at a point in our relationship where we talk about all of it. But that is not how it began. It began by him saying, I have a problem and I don't want to talk about it. And we didn't for years. Does this make sense? And then he would come tell me, hey, I had a relapse and I don't want to talk about it. And I would say, okay. And that was it. And I was just sitting there with all the feelings and all the emotional baggage and I didn't know how to handle it. And so I would clam down and I would not talk and I would just cry myself to sleep. Okay. And that is not where we are now. But at the time, that's where we were. And over time, as I became more capable of processing my emotions, and as he became more capable of processing his emotions, and we were able to learn how to process emotions and give each other space in a conversation, and we learned how to have difficult conversations, and we learned how to be in charge of our brain and manage our emotions, then it became more possible for us to have a conversation where we could do that, where I could take in more information, where he could give me more details. And that's where we are now. We're at a place where I'm able to have a lot of details about what is going on. That's why I'm able to coach. That's why I'm able to talk about all of this all day long, is because I have been able to process. I have learned how to process all of it. And I have let it go. And so now I can take so much more on because it's not triggering, just like we talked about last week, it's not triggering a whole deep well or bucket of emotional baggage from the past. It only brings up what's in the present. And it's not bringing up all of these old beliefs that I have about myself. This is why I'm doing that, the masterclass of how to not hate your body. That's what used to come up when he would talk about this. When he would tell me he relapsed, then that's what would come up is what's wrong with me? Am I not sexy enough, desirable enough? It's because I need to lose weight and all of those things. And that's what would come up because I believed that about myself. But I was able to change what I believe about myself. And so now if he came to me today and told me that he relapsed, then I would be able to process the pain of it without attaching it to my body image. Does this make sense? And attaching it to my body image is what made it 10 times worse, because I made it mean something about me, about my body, about him desiring me, about my sexuality, about all of it. But I was able to work through that. And the more you're able to work through your own stuff, ladies, the more you're going to be able to have the conversations that you actually want. Okay? So it was a very long-winded answer to this email and to this question. It's going to be different for each one of you. There is no cut and dry answer. I can't sit here and tell you, yes, he should tell you every single time. Here's what the conversation should look like. Here's exactly how it should go. He should do it within this time frame, and here's the details that he should give you. There is no should or shouldn't. There is no right or wrong here, and it could look different even within your relationship, not just compared to other people, but it could look different even within your relationship today than it did 6 months ago, or it looks like 6 months from now. That's entirely up to you. Okay? All right, ladies, I love you so much. If you are struggling with this, come join me in my coaching program and I will help you work through all of this. It was a very coachy episode today, ladies. So if you made it through the end, bravo. Very coachy. There's a lot going on beneath the surface, subconsciously, that goes into answering this question. So if you want help with it, I would love to help you. Come join me. I love you all, ladies. All you all ladies. I love all of you so much, and I hope you have a great day. So take care. Hello, my lady. I wrote a book and I would love for you to read it. It's called The Not Enough Wife, and you can get it on Amazon today. This book is for any woman who has ever felt like she wasn't enough, not enough as a wife or as a mom, if she didn't have Instagram-worthy enough pictures, if she didn't throw Pinterest-worthy parties, if she ever felt like she was not enough, this is the book for her, and it's for you too. So go to Amazon today, go search up The Not Enough Wife by Jolene Wynn, and grab a copy for yourself and for all the women in your life. I hope you love it, and I can't wait to hear what you think.